The snow stopped falling a few hours ago. What was once an overcrowded city is now a frozen wasteland. You can hardly distinguish the houses between them. The roofs are barely visible above the snow accumulated during the last month. The trees have already succumbed to the cold and the weight of the ice, while the animals have taken refuge with humans inside houses and other buildings. The wild animals, I don't know. I never really thought about them. Some must have died already, I suppose. Others must be having a great time, like the polar bears. Or maybe these temperatures are even too low for them. The temperature, it keeps falling. Nobody knows when it'll stop or if it's even reversible. Nobody knows exactly why the whole world ended up this way. Of course, we all know why, but not how. Because everything happened in such a strange way that nobody understands. All the physicists in the world tried to explain it, to solve it, but they couldn't. Now the entire population of Earth is in underground bunkers, those that had been built in case of a nuclear war. They are the only places with enough insulation to resist low temperatures, at least for a while. Nobody knows exactly how much will survive. Everything will depend on the amount of provisions that each one has saved. I have enough for several years, of course. I was not going to build an anti-nuclear bunker and then not refuel it. The food, it may not last me for several decades, but I'm sure I can survive at least 5 years. And perhaps, in that time, the Earth has already warmed up again. Or maybe the cold has killed me. Anyway, I guess the food will do. In addition, I have the perfect entertainment set, which is also not dependent on the internet, because the internet no longer works. It's been down for several weeks. The same with telephone communication, television, and even the radio, which was the last fall just 2 days ago. Everyone knows that if the radio stopped working, it was only a matter of time before the temperatures would drop so low that it would cause flash freezing. The last words heard were, "Please survive." I have no idea who said them. The president, perhaps, or some scientist trying to encourage himself and others to have time to find a solution. It was as if he was saying, "Please survive so that someone is there to see that we succeeded." Or, "Please survive so that we don't take the blame for humanity's extinction." The reality is, it really was the fault of the scientists, or at least that is believed, because once again, nobody knows exactly how. Teleportation, that was the great invention that they were testing. The first teleportation machine in history. The theory was perfect. The machine had been built following the instructions to the letter. Everything had been checked at least 10 times. The task was, in theory, simple: transporting a cardboard box from point A to point B. The distance wasn't very big, barely even 2 meters. It was the first attempt after all. They couldn't ask for much. The cardboard box was placed on the transmitter, right in the middle of the small circular platform that made it up. A protective bubble was placed on top of the box and fitted perfectly into the platform. On the other side, the receiver was exactly the same, except that at the moment it was, of course, empty. They activated the mechanism and instantly the machine began to work. It first undid the box little by little. Witnesses say it looked like a 3D printer, but in reverse. Every single atom in the cardboard box was disengaged, allowing the box to enter the proper liminal state to be carried through the air, across the room, and captured by the receptacle where it would be rebuilt. The problem was that once the box disappeared, it did not reappear. Scientists, technicians, and engineers reviewed their equations and plans, but they found no errors. Both machines were perfect, but no matter what they did, the box would not come back. Nobody knows exactly how long it took from that first test until everything went really wrong. None of those involved in the project said anything, no matter how hard they were pressed. The most that they could say was that they had no idea what had happened. At this point, everyone believes them because nobody has a clue. But at the time, no one did. They were accused of being the horsemen of the apocalypse. The thing is, a month ago, the cardboard box appeared. The problem was that it did not appear on the receiver of the teleporting machine. It didn't even show up in the room where the experiment had been done. No, the box appeared in outer space, floating. And it didn't end there. The first one was followed by more and more. The boxes continued to appear throughout space, around the planets, around the moons, and even around the sun itself. The satellites were blocked because the cardboard didn't even allow waves to pass. That's when the internet went down and everyone really freaked out. Where were they going to upload the videos of what was happening? Where did they go to fight strangers? Who would they tell their conspiracy theories to? Television was the next to fall. Everyone was desperate, except the owners of the newspapers who were able to put the old printing presses back into operation. The world seemed to go back to the beginning of the 20th century, when only paper newspapers and radio existed. Antique dealers made money, selling old radio sets that had been forgotten for decades. The last image NASA received from space telescopes was so strange and so terrifying that no one knew what to say. Not even the news headlines were able to come up with a sensational phrase. The reality was worse than anything they could exaggerate. The space was filled with cardboard boxes, literal. The images from the satellites had shown NASA that the boxes were not only around the Earth, but also around all objects in the universe, planets, stars, and even galaxies. It was as if all of the empty space in the universe had been replaced by cardboard boxes, all because an experiment had gone wrong. In the first week, the sky seemed to be on fire. Looking up, large flares could be seen streaking across the sky, caused by the boxes crashing into the Earth's atmosphere and burning up in the process. And since the boxes were everywhere, the whole sky was constantly crossed by flames. Eventually, the flames stopped and darkness engulfed everything. The boxes blocked out the sun. That's when the temperature started to drop. The snow soon appeared, covering everything. It was not long until the entire population had to take refuge. The temperature kept dropping. No one knew what the limit would be, just as no one knew whether it could be reversed or how long we would survive. For my part, I don't have much hope. I was never someone who understood much about science, but I'm sure that if the boxes are still up there, it will all be over soon. I'm not even sure if all the supplies I have will do any good. The bunker, after all, it was built to survive a nuclear disaster, not a permanent winter. The walls are thick and well insulated, but I can already feel the cold coming in. I have a stove, but only one because I never thought it would be so cold. It was never so cold here where I lived, and no one ever told me to worry about that. I should have grabbed another one before I went in, but all I got was blankets. All the ones that were in my house, which weren't many either. I already have one around my body because I started shivering just now. I'm next to the stove. I'm wearing the thickest jacket I have, but the cold seems to be coming in. It's been already 3 days since I got into the bunker. The radio is static. I don't even have the heart to watch movies. I'm afraid I'll freeze while doing it without realizing it. I have a cup of coffee in my hands. I left the kitchen stove on to heat the environment a little more, but I know I'm going to have to turn it off soon because the bunker is hermetic, and although it has an air purification system, I can get poisoned by the combustion gases. That's something they always told me when I built it, that I had to be careful with the kitchen. I wonder what would be less painful, death by cold or gas poisoning. If the internet still existed, I would look it up, although I really don't know if I want to know the answer. I get up, dragging the blanket behind me, and I finish turning off the stove. It's better to be cautious. I go back to the place by the stove and grab my cup of coffee. It helped to warm me up a bit, but not much because it cooled down so quickly. The last sip I take seems to be taken from the fridge. The damn bunker has turned into an ice cream parlor. I bet if I turned off the refrigerator I have, things would stay the same. And that makes me wonder, how long will it be until the power goes out? Because I'm sure the cables and power plants must already be having problems. I know that some areas have already had blackouts. Here, luckily, nothing has happened yet. I hope it lasts a long time. I do not want to imagine what it would be like to be in the cold, and on top of that, being in the dark. Well, it would almost be like being outside, I suppose. Outside, with the dark sky, without stars and without sun. Without even being able to see the light of the moon. Just cardboard boxes, which are not even visible from here. We only know they're there because of the photos and the flares. Damn teleportation. Nobody needed it. Why did they have to invent it? It's useless. It wouldn't solve anything. Why? I guess it's nobody's fault, really. No one could have imagined that the experiment would go so wrong. After all, in whose wildest imagination would something like this bring about the end of the world? I wrap myself in another blanket. I don't know if it's really colder or if I'm just imagining it. I look at the clock and see it's already night, but I can't sleep. I don't want to risk falling asleep and never waking up. Damn, it is really cold in here, I whispered to myself, to no one in particular, to the universe.